Everyone, we're thrilled to have you here today. We're going to be talking about the Crowdfunding Professional Association 2024 Regulated Investment Crowdfunding Summit that will be happening next week. We're going to bring in some of the speakers from next week, one at a time, to tell you a little bit about the messages they'll be sharing at the event. This will be a huge event. We're going to be streaming this live to television on the E360 TV network. We're going to be streaming this to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. You'll be able to find it everywhere, but we will have an elite studio audience in Washington, D.C., where it's kind of the center of the universe for regulated investment crowdfunding, emphasis on regulated. We'll be meeting with regulators in advance, and so this is going to be a big deal. Let me bring on first one of our keynote speakers that's going to be at the event. I'm going to bring on Fred Pena. Fred, tell us a little bit about what you'll be talking about at the event and who you are. You're a big deal, right? You run one of the most successful crowdfunding portals in the country. You're doing a big job. So you've done some big.
Thank you, but it's overstated. We have good referrals is what we have. So, but my name is Fred Pena. I'm the president at Angel Funding. That's a DBA that's so general that most people would look at that and be like, there's lots of angel funding going on all over the place. So who is this? What is this? But we do film financing, and that's the focus. And what I talk about is going to be not a surprise, but Sarah Hanks is I'm going to say mediating this panel. We're going to definitely be talking about what we would call alternative investment types. We could possibly talk about deal structures and how they fit in from what was not originally available for retail investors and what is now available for them. And we've got some other good panelists on that, obviously. And so I personally am looking forward more to hearing and talking with them and asking questions about the deal structures that they're working with to see what's working best for issuers and for investors.
Now, on your portal, you've raised, I think the official way that like Brian Belay from King's Crowd, he'd calculate this. I think he'd call it a crap ton of money, but you've had some very successful campaigns. Do you want to highlight one or two of the most successful campaigns you've had on your site?
Yeah, so we started as soon as the law was amended to allow the offering limit to go up to the 5 million. We immediately got a handful of offerings that shot up there and did the 5 million. We learned, and I probably won't talk about this on the panel, but we just saw a pattern of investment that there's lots of investment at the beginning of an offering and a lot at the end. And so we cut our offerings down to typically 21 to 28 days, which is the minimum, and a week after the minimum. And so some of these offerings were able to hit 5 million in that short period of time. And so we've got Angel Studios did an offering that way with us, and they're an affiliate. We have the Wingfeather Saga, the David movie offering, and anyway, some what I consider some successful ones that some of them have already released, and others that are still in production. But
yeah, you've had some really cool successes. Most of them are films, right?
Yeah, everything is either a film or a TV series that we've worked with. So like Wingfeather Saga is a children's cartoon. I love it. My kids love it. And then David the movie is still in production and not expected to come out until next year. So
very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Well, Fred, thank you very much for being here. We look forward to seeing you at the event. I hope everyone will tune in. I mean, think about this. You get an opportunity, come to DC, make the trip, pay a whopping $50, join the CFPA, and be in the room with a guy who controls the flow of millions of dollars, or watch him on TV. You can still just watch him on TV. Watch it on the E360 TV app. Sit in your living room all day and watch the whole event play out. So Fred, thank you very, very much. We're
Thanks,
excited to
Devin.
have you be at the Super Crowd or at the CFPA Summit next week. Thank you very, very much.
Yep.
Let's
Thank you.
bring on Brian Belay next. Brian, we're thrilled to have you here. Appreciate you making time. This is such a big deal. This event. You've been part of the planning effort. Just give us a little bit of an overview on what's gone into planning for this event over the past, really, it's been a year.
Yeah, this has been a long time in the making. I know we've been talking about it for a while. So thanks again for joining us, everyone. My name is Brian Blay. My day job is as the VP, Vice President of Product at King's Crowd, where we do data and analytics for the online regulated investment crowdfunding markets. And my role at the Crowdfunding Professional Association is the secretary and on the board of directors. So as Devin mentioned, and Devin deserves a huge amount of credit here as well, because he has absolutely been just taking on a lion's share of the planning and the work to coordinate to go into this summit. But we have a lot of great things planned that are actually coming to fruition. We can't be more excited to see everyone there next week in Washington, D.C. To give you an idea, we are coordinating with all the different amazing speakers and panelists. We have a lot of the who's who, the leaders like Fred, whom you just met, and a lot of other both funding portals as well as investors, entrepreneurs, attorneys, all the service providers, the marketing agencies. Everyone who is really an advocate for the industry is going to be there, and we're really looking forward to it. So coordinating all of those has been just a fantastic opportunity, and we are very excited to see the result of that next week on the presentations. In addition, we've been working and coordinating with a lot of the regulators. So we're actually going to have some members from FINRA, some directors from FINRA who are going to be there, as well as some members from SEC, so SEC Commissioner Peirce, and potentially some other regulators as well will be joining us. And we have a day of meetings with a lot of the regulators actually on the Hill. So on Tuesday, myself and some of the other board members here are going to be going and meeting with a lot of the regulators to tell them about the Crowdfunding Professional Association policy positions. Sure, we'll be talking a little bit more about that, and we'll be, talking about and sharing that for those who are at the conference next week. But, those are just some of the things for the planning that's gone into this. But in addition, we've been able to secure an amazing venue in Arlington, Virginia. So it's just right outside, right across the river in DC, but has a fantastic view, one of the best views of overlooking the Capitol. And we're going to be having the welcome reception there on the evening of October 22nd. And then also October 23rd is the day of the conference. So, in a nutshell, that's a little snapshot of just a lot of the great things we have planned for next week.
Now, you're going to be one of the kickoff speakers, Brian. Give us a little overview. I think you're going to be hitting on some of these key industry data stats and kind of things to help us put this whole event in context. Give us a tiny preview, if you will.
Absolutely. So I'm going to be talking about and kicking things off the morning of October 23rd on Wednesday with the state of the crowdfunding industry. So zooming out, taking a look at the journey that this industry has gone through to get to where we're at today, and using that to help set a stage of where we might be looking forward and to kind of set up some of the discussions we'll be having. So again, Jobs Act, when we talk about regulation crowdfunding, launched in 2016. In those first few years, we saw investments in the tens of millions of dollars, but things didn't really start to take off until around the 2020 and 2021 timeframe, raising upwards of $500 million in 2021 in regulation crowdfunding, and also a lot in Regulation A in the billions of dollars. And then since then, we've also been continuing to track the market. And while some of the market has had a little bit of a pullback, one of the charts I'll be showing actually compares it to venture capital. And compared to VC has actually had a much bigger pullback. So Reg CF, kind of the online regulated investment crowdfunding markets, have actually been more robust. There's still a lot of investors who are sticking around, who believe in investing in these small businesses and these entrepreneurs. And that's also part of the data I'll be sharing, is I'll be diving in more to some of the details around the minority founders, the female founders, some of these underrepresented minority groups who are able to get better access to capital through regulation and regulated investment on crowdfunding compared to traditional means, right, of going through VCs. So that's just a little, again, preview of some of the different stats we'll be talking about. We'll be diving in a lot more with a lot of charts and data. So.
This is going to be fantastic. Brian, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for all of your hard work on this. I see we've got Brian Christie, the CFPA president, is in the queue. He's really led this effort. We'll bring him on in a minute, but first we're going to talk to Marnie Murata, and she was actually working on Capitol Hill back in 2012 when the Jobs Act passed. So her fingerprints are all over this whole business. She's now working as a lobbyist, and she's smart on these tax issues. So Marnie, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you here.
Well, thank you so much. And it's so great to be here. I'm very excited for next week. I can't wait to see everybody. Many of them will be old faces, seeing them again, and some of them will be brand new. And I have to say, I can't believe how much crowdfunding has taken off since I worked on it in 2012. And it's been very exciting to watch.
My gosh, it is just exciting to see, this, what was for a long time just kind of a vision and an idea coming to real fruition and mature and grow. It's fabulous. Thank you for your work in making that happen. Now, you're going to be participating in this tax panel. And do you see some opportunity for the tax incentives to accelerate this marketplace somehow?
Absolutely. I mean, tax incentives is the number one way that we incentivize taking new activities. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is next year, Congress, regardless of who wins in November, will have to do some kind of tax package. And that doesn't happen a lot. So this is the perfect time to be talking about how to make sure that we incentivize people investing in crowdfunding projects. And I think there's a great appetite for it. I'm going to be talking about the mechanics of how to make that happen and how to be an effective advocate. And I'm really looking forward to it.
I think it's going to be fabulous. It's just going to be fabulous. And I think this discussion around the tax incentives is really exciting because the potential is there. If we do this right, to accelerate the growth beyond what anyone has seen in this space since the earliest days, right? Could catalyze some incredible growth, 5 times, 10 times what it is today, easily. We're excited. And Marnie, thank you so much for participating. You bring just such a wealth of expertise, and we appreciate your presence and Arnold and Porter supporting you to come. So thank you very, very much. We really appreciate that. I'm going to bring on our CFPA president now, Brian Christie. Brian hasn't slept since August. He's been working on this big event day and night. He's just done an incredible job. Brian, thank you so much for your leadership. Take a minute. Give us a sense of your vision for the summit.
Sure, Devin. Well, as a couple of people have mentioned, the Jobs Act was passed in 2012, but it wasn't until 2016 that rulemaking took place that allowed companies really to start participating in this marketplace. CFPA was very active at modifying some of those rules so that they're more friendly for the issuers and investors, and that took place just really in 2021. So in many ways, crowdfunding is only a few years old, but at any given time, there are about 500 or 600 companies that are actively raising funds through this exemption, through crowdfunding, which is great because, again, it's something that didn't exist in the past. So we're very excited to bring the story of crowdfunding and also to look at some of the issues, the ways that we can make it better. And so anything that's new ways to find improvement, and there's lots of people really dedicated to this industry. What I find very enjoyable to work in this is there's a lot of people who are really true believers in the mission, the mandate, and the opportunity that regulated investment crowdfunding can provide to all sorts of people, both on the capital raising side as well as those who are trying to build some wealth using this sort of mechanism. So we have a great agenda that's really focused on looking at ways that the industry has progressed and how it can further progress. And if I can take a minute, Devin, I'll just highlight some of the different panel discussions because that's what people would get a chance to
Please
hear.
do. And remind us too, we got some big dogs coming from the SEC, don't we?
So we will have Commissioner Peirce, who will be there as part of a fireside chat. So she's agreed to be there and chat. So we're really happy that she'll be there. And we have a director from FINRA as well, James Murphy, who will be there to talk about best practices for companies who are thinking about launching or how to operate their Reg CF portal. And we'll be separately meeting with some of the other SEC commissioners as part of our sort of fly-in with people coming to town to have discussions with them. In terms of the panel discussions, where there's going to be a lot of great knowledge sharing taking place, we're going to kick it off with a discussion about the impact benefit of crowdfunding, both for underrepresented founders as well as how the deals themselves can be more impact focused as opposed to some of the traditional funding and financing that's happening in the VC world. We'll also be talking about sort of we'll get into the weeds in another panel about the rules and the regs and some of the ambiguities that make it difficult to operate in the industry. So we're hoping to raise those issues and highlight them so that people on the Hill or regulators can help us work through them so that we can create a little more clarity, make it easier for the industry to understand how to operate and how to be good stewards of this industry. You mentioned that there's a panel on tax incentives, and that's great to talk about the benefits that could potentially provide for the growth of the industry. We'll also be talking about really the importance of retail investors, because this really does focus on, as an industry, the benefits that retail investors and as having them as a part of a company's cap table, having them as part of the company's ownership structure. We talk a lot about the cross between investors who are customers, and we call them investomers, and that's really a nice alignment between your sort of stakeholders that are around your company and ones that can then have more important buy-in to the company. So we'll have a panel talking about that. Because it's an industry event and a lot of industry insiders will be there, we'll talk about different deal structures and how the innovation is taking place. There's a lot of standardization is taking place, but even within that, around the edge of that, there's a lot of interesting, exciting things in terms of how deals are being structured. And so we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about other innovation that's happening around the industry as well. So we have a panel that's on the plumbing and adjacent innovation, and lots of great speakers talking in that and on those topics. And then finally, our last panel will really be talking about connecting the dots between the issuers who are out raising money as well as the potential investors. And there's a lot of techniques and strategies that companies and third parties are learning help in order to bring those parties together. So that's a sort of overview of what the panels and discussions are going to be for the day. And at the end, we'll have an industry awards ceremony where we will recognize people in different categories for just being outstanding or having done something outstanding in the past year. And so some of those categories are really across 5 areas. One is we call the Social Impact Award. Second, there's a Rocket Launch Award, which focuses on the company that has had a very quick raise under Reg CF. And there's a Trailblazer Award, which really talks about and recognizes someone a company who's done some infrastructure building. They've really done some innovation that paves the way for others in the industry. We have an award that's called the Cool Innovator Award, which will honor a company that's either doing a first-of-a-kind project or some sort of eco-friendly project that's focused on the sustainability and that's good for the planet. And then finally, we have what we call the Pay It Forward Award. And so that will be one that really recognizes somebody who embodies the spirit of sort of generosity and leadership in the industry. And so it's a packed agenda. It's going to be a great crowd. We're really excited. I would say before I leave, we do want to recognize we have some great sponsors who have stepped up, who are making this whole thing feasible. And we're really excited and glad to have grateful to have their participation. And some of these companies include ClearingBid, Dealmaker, Digital Niche Agency, Angel Funding, a company called Revalue LLC, the law firm Monat, Phelps and Phillips, Artesian CPA, Crowdfund Holdings Innovators, Sosno and Associates, Raise Green, Small Change, and Supercrowd. So, and finally, FinTech TV is also a champion as well. So we're very grateful to them and their contributions, because without that, we wouldn't be able to assemble so many people at such a great location and to have this great dialogue. So that's if people haven't signed up, we hope they'll join the association. It's only $10 a month. We hope they'll show up and be at the summit and register. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be exciting, and a lot will get done. A lot of work will get done, and so we're really glad that this event's taking place.
Yeah, Brian, you've done just a fabulous job. Fabulous job. I hope you'll stick around in case we get some questions from the crowd. You may need to answer that,
Sure.
but if you got to go, we understand. We know you're the busiest man in the country right now. So I'm going to bring Sarah Hanks on. Sarah is one of the longest serving members of the Crowdfunding Professional Association board. And
probably one of the oldest too.
We won't talk about that. But welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Tell us a little bit about what your message will be at the summit.
Well, we've got a really interesting panel, actually, because one of the things we're going to discuss is what can you invest in? Hey, investors, there's all of these things. What are they? Because remember, back in the early days of crowdfunding, people used to call it equity crowdfunding, which was never actually true because debt was always an option. But now, regulated investment crowdfunding can give investors an option to invest in shares. These can be common shares or they can be preferred shares. We can explain a little bit about why and what the options are for investors and for issuers. They can invest in straight debt. They can invest in revenue shares. They can invest in, well, pretty much anything that anyone can think of. And one of the things we're going to be discussing is, should these things be standardized, or should they be, tailored to the needs of the individual issuer? And then what should investors be looking out for when somebody is offering something that is a non-standardized product, and how do you recognize it? So I think it's going to be a very useful guide to investors as to how to become better investors, because a lot of people just still don't understand what it is they're investing in. They think, we're buying common stock like we would on the New York Stock Exchange, and that's never the case.
Almost never.
Generally not.
Yeah. I sold common shares when I did my deal. Crazy. But Sarah, you've been, my gosh, really, one of the most influential people in this space for a long time. Tell us a little bit about how your firm helps people in this space, because you got a lot going on.
Yeah, we do. And then one of the things that people sometimes miss is, the CrowdCheck empire includes not just a law firm, but we started as purely a diligence shop. And all we were doing in the very early days, when it was, pre-2016, when crowdfunding was only available to accredited investors, what we did is we used to do due diligence for the platforms and provide a check, hence the name CrowdCheck, on whether the company was properly incorporated, whether it was legal for it to do what it was doing, whether the things that it was saying were correct or not in the offering materials and on the website. And that's where we started. But because we were founded by securities lawyers, people kept asking us the securities law questions. And then, bless them, they would send us chocolates as a reward for helping them. And then we started thinking, well, we could actually charge money for this. So we stood up CrowdCheck Law alongside CrowdCheck Inc. And now CrowdCheck Law is really more what we're known for, because we provide a wide range of legal compliance, diligence, bad actors, and compliance advice for anybody raising capital online. But But it's been a long and interesting development, and the market basically took us, where the market went. Originally, we thought we would be in the Reg CF space alone, and then Reg A got adopted ahead of Regulation CF, and we're like, oh well, we could do that too. So it's being entrepreneurs ourselves. It's been like that's where the market's going. We're going to go with it.
Well, Sarah, we're thrilled that you're here and excited to have an opportunity to see you and learn from you next week. So thank you for being here now. Thank you for making time for the summit next week. And thank you for your, I think it's a decade of service to the Crowdfunding Professional Association board, maybe over a decade.
Probably in various incarnations. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for all of your help and service there.
We're going to see you all next week.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to bring on Rod Turner now. Rod is the founder of, let's see, Rod, remind me what you call that. What do you call your firm?
Manhattan Street Capital.
That's right, Manhattan Street. And you've been around doing this for a decade yourself, right? You from the earliest days, because you help people with the Reg A offerings, the bigger offerings, help people raise, crap ton of money. I think we defined that term earlier in the conversation. And
yes.
So you have helped people raise a lot of money over the decade since, and it has been fully a decade since the Reg A portion of
almost. Yeah,
right?
in 6 months it'll be 10 years. Yes, so it's been about 9.5 years ago that I launched the company.
Yeah, so amazing history. Tell us a little bit about what your message will be at the event next week.
Yes, so my company specializes primarily in Reg A plus offerings, and the panel we're going to be discussing liquidity and a number of other advantages of regulation crowdfunding and Reg A plus offerings in particular. And my part is going to be to describe how companies can use these instruments, particularly Reg A plus, to go public in new ways that aren't broadly known. So, for example, you can take your company public via the traditional IPO route, which is fine. The downsides of doing it that way are that it's typically extremely expensive upfront. I spoke to a company recently that was all teed up with about $850,000 of front-loaded expenses before raising $1 in their S1 IPO. And unfortunately, in their case, the auditors had the auditors were shut down by the SEC at the last minute, so they had to restart their audit process, and they were really stuck from a cash standpoint, and they were still unable to raise any money until they would rework everything. My point being, in that instance, that issue, that in a Reg A plus you raise money, you're able to file with the SEC and get through the SEC's qualification process much more rapidly with a Reg A plus than with an S1 filing. It's typically considered about a 10 to 15% workload compared to 100% for an S1. And the service providers are far less expensive, so you might spend $150,000 to $250,000 altogether, assuming you were quite generous on some of those providers before conducting your Reg A plus. So it's a lot less expensive, but most importantly, in this respect, when in an S1 IPO, the underwriters will go to bat for you, and if they find it too difficult to raise money because the market dynamics have tightened up, which they often do, and currently they're pretty tight, then they'll tell you, sorry, we can't actually take you out right now. You'll have to come back later. Let's stay in touch. In which case, that company that spent $850K is $850K out of pocket without having raised $1 and without the ability to raise $1, even if they had their audited financials in place. Whereas in a Reg A plus, we're raising money online from the date that the SEC qualifies the offering. And we don't actually have to list the company. So we can list the company via an underwritten IPO at the right time in the process, or via a direct listing, which is not generally known. But to be able to do it that way, the big benefit is that when the IPO window is closed, you hear that phrase a lot. Pardon my hands disappearing. Look at that. The background image is nicer than my real room situation here, but you're losing some of my limbs in the process. But in any case, you hear the phrase the IPO window is closed, which doesn't mean the SEC won't accept any filings for IPOs. It means that the underwriters won't sign you up and deliver anything for you because the market's too tough for them to raise money. So in the event that we are marketing a company together with our client, that is to say, our client company is marketing itself and we're assisting them to raise money in a Reg A plus, when it's a compelling offering, we can raise money in this market. We can raise money in the market the way it was last year. We are not, the IPO window does not close. So that's a lovely, lovely thing. It's not a matter of theory, it's a matter of practice.
Yeah, and it provides a path. This is so exciting, so exciting. The Dodd-Frank, Sarbanes-Oxley made it so expensive for big companies to be public that we've seen a transition. We've seen capital moving out of the public markets into the private markets. But some of the rules for smaller businesses are a little easier for public companies, and this provides a path for the smaller companies to get public more affordably and be listed on NASDAQ as a micro cap stock. And this is like the real deal, right? This is yes. Exciting stuff.
Yes, it is. And as again, on a pragmatic level, when you do a direct listing, essentially you have already raised the money from enough investors that you can list the company. You don't need to use an underwriter. So you save, 8.5% commissions and warrants and other expenses and front-loaded expenses, the most painful part when you're doing a direct listing. So not only is the IPO window never actually closed, it also can be a less expensive method of raising money, and it's certainly a lot less expensive on the front end.
And I just love to point out that when we're talking about regulated investment crowdfunding, we are talking about not only your end of the spectrum, but we're also talking about raising $25,000 for a food truck on a Reg CF portal, right? This is such absolutely. A dynamic arena. We're just thrilled. We're excited to have you at the event. I'm going to bring Scott McIntyre, who is the chairman of the Crowdfunding Professional Association, on now. But Rod, thank you very much for joining us. We're excited to see you next week.
Yeah, thank you. Look forward to it. See you then. Cheers.
Scott, good golly, Scott, you are, I think, one of two, maybe members of the board of directors of the Crowdfunding Professional Association that has been with the organization since it was formed in 1942. No. In 2013, right? It was formed in 2012 or 2013?
2012.
Yeah, holy cow. A dozen years ago. You were there for the formation. You've served on the board ever since. You've been the chairman for years. What do you think? Are you happy with the progress we're making?
Oh, I've already made some notes on what I would like to say today, but that definitely touches on one of them. But no, I can't take credit for being in the very first class of founders, although technically I'm a founding member. Sarah predated my experience there, and I have to thank her again, not only for guiding us through so many of these years back and forth in person and otherwise, but it'll be great to have her speaking for us at the conference as well. So thanks, Sarah. As far as my feelings about the growth of this industry and the organization itself, I always lead off with the benefits of volunteerism, and I don't know how many people are talking about it or thinking about it that are on this podcast right now, but it's a critical component of harmonious society, I've decided, and we're really lacking that among many things in our culture right now. So I think that crowdfunding has done a wonderful job at bringing people together for what matters, particularly what matters locally. So right off the bat on the volunteerism thing, I just want to thank you. Obviously, you've been such a great leader for the CFPA, sitting in my desk for more years than I can mention. But it's awesome. What you do is awesome, and you complement it with your own work outside of the CFPA as well, which is always gratifying for me to see anyway. So thank you, and thank the rest of the directors, including Brian Christie and Brian Belay, who you've already heard from today. Without you guys, none of this would be happening to the scope that it is now. And I've, sat a lot in this desk with the responsibility of keeping this organization going for a lot of years. And never have I had the support system that I have right now. The amount of talent that's on our board alone, and it's a giant board, 20 people or more, is incredible. So all of you people giving your time to all the rest of us entrepreneurs and retail investors out there is truly meaningful. So thank you.
Well, it is wonderful to see what the CFPA has become and what the industry is becoming. I get more excited about thinking about the potential. You've laid a foundation. You build a foundation for something that could be truly transformational, not for the industry, not for individual businesses, but for the country, even for the world. This is exciting stuff.
This is actually
Tell us about your message next week.
Oh, yeah, no problem. My message at the conference?
Yeah.
We're kind of on a delay on the audio, so bear with me if there's any pauses. Well, yeah, my work at the conference is going to be more of that of an MC, which is ironically my nickname since I was a kid, was MC, and not for necessarily being a public speaker. I really still get nervous talking in front of crowds. Even on this podcast, I'm not quite myself, but you get used to it after a while. And standing in front of tens of thousands of small business builders in China and in Russia, I guess I should be used to it by now. But so what I'll be talking about is a little bit more about, the meaning and how, we've not just grown as an advocacy organization kind of quietly, but we're now starting to get some visibility in the Hill that I think will be truly beneficial to the growth of our industry. And that's what I'll touch on a little bit. But it was more touching with your last point, which was about inspiring more people in local and small town environments, not the typical, big city hustle that you see in New York and San Francisco and a lot of the other financial hubs. So for me, I am most affected when I see crowdfunding distilled. This is where trickle down actually does work. We're starting to see the message of crowdfunding and its benefits get to small towns, first time entrepreneurs, small businesses that need capital to grow. That's really what it's all about, creating jobs and building a future. And I think that the mood we're in right now as a nation, as a result of, some of the shortfalls that happened because of COVID, reshoring domestic industry, reshoring domestic production is of critical importance in my eyes. And the work we're doing is adding a ton of fuel to that mission, which I think is really important, not just, economically, globally, competitively, but I think it's part of our culture. It's part of our DNA. And I think self-reliance is a big one. Resilience as an economy is actually part of that. But I think more than anything else, it's the spirit of togetherness that really makes crowdfunding such a joy to work in.
I'm going to bring back Brian and Brian back into the conversation here. This.
Where's Jenny?
This is a core representation of the team that's really been working on planning the event, led by Brian, particularly Brian Christie. As we wrap up this conversation, this live stream today, I want to remind people that not only can they get we can still get tickets. As of this moment, we're live on Friday afternoon at about 4:41 p.m. Eastern time, and tickets are still available. And so you can get those. Visit cfpa.org. You can also find them on Humanitix and Google us, reach out. I think Brian and Brian each have a spare ticket or two that they could spot you. So reach out if you're looking for if you can't afford a ticket, we want you there. But you can watch it, right? You can watch it. You can watch it on LinkedIn. You can watch it on Facebook. You can watch it on YouTube, and you can watch it in your living room on E360 TV. Watching it on television, it'll be streaming all day live on E360 TV. Just download the app, and look for the event. It'll be live. It'll be prominently displayed all day on E360 TV.
So not only will my directors are already rock stars, but now they're going to be movie stars. So go get them.
Movies. That's exactly right. Big deal. They're a big deal. So, Brian Belay, what final words do you want to share with everybody?
Yeah, I just can't echo and express enough thanks for all the work from everyone here that's gone into this, to all of our speakers who are offering their gracious time and expertise. It's really, really going to be, I know, an amazing, amazing event with just fantastic conversations based on the caliber of the people that are going to be there. So if you can't join us in person, hopefully you can. Definitely make sure you're checking it out. And in addition, I think just echoing the message and the mission of the CFPA, we are here to help support the industry, right? Whether you are someone who is a regulator, whether you're a funding platform, an investor, industry professional, a founder, anyone in between. And we have a lot of great things planned. This is, I will say, the start of what we hope to start doing moving forward. So if you aren't already a member, please do check us out, join. It's extremely reasonable. The value you get out of it just through the networking and the connections is incredible. So
just through one ticket to a summit, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Pays for it.
Yeah, that's right. Scott, final thoughts as we wrap up.
Oh gosh, final thought. It's going to be 75 and sunny all week in Washington. So for no other reason, get out of your house, fly to Washington, and join us at the CFPA.
Yeah, it's going to be phenomenal. It really will be. I want to see everybody there. Brian Christie, why don't you share your final thoughts on the event? We'd love to hear from you.
Sure. This is an industry event, but for those who are new to the space, I'd say that in many ways, regulated investment crowdfunding is still in the first inning. Maybe we're starting the second inning. So there's a whole lot of things to learn, a whole lot of things to do. And if you're an innovator, if you're someone who prides yourself on being entrepreneurial, I'd say hop in. The waters are warm. Jump in and join us, and you'll find something. You'll find a lot of interest and a lot of opportunity to build on if you come and learn more about the industry. So this is a great, fantastic place to start.
It is going to be great.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll be. Brian and Scott, thank you all. Thanks everybody else who was here earlier. And I look forward to seeing everyone in the whole world on Wednesday at the summit and Tuesday night too. Thanks everybody.
Thank you, Devin.
Thank you, Devin.